The phone slipped from my hand, clattering onto the hardwood floor as the Instagram post burned into my retinas. Upgraded to the better twin. The caption read, paired with a photo of my sister, Lila, her lips pressed against my fiancé, Ethan, in a way that screamed betrayal. My chest tightened, the air in our shared apartment turning to ash as I realized my identical twin had just detonated my life with a single click. I stood frozen, staring at the screen. The comments poured in, strangers laughing, friends gasping in emojis, and a few cruel souls tagging me, as if I needed the reminder. Lila, my mirror image, my other half since the womb, had always been the bolder one, the one who took what she wanted without apology. But this was a knife twisted into the heart of everything we'd built our sisterhood. My future with Ethan, the life I'd spent years planning. I wanted to scream, to call her and demand answers, but my body wouldn't move. Instead, I sank to the floor, the weight of her betrayal pulling me under like a riptide. Ethan and I had been together for 3 years, engaged for 6 months. He was steady, reliable, the kind of man who remembered your coffee order and showed up when he said he would. We'd met at a charity run, both of us panting and laughing at the finish line. And from that moment, I thought we were unbreakable. Lila had always been around. Of course she was my twin, my built-in best friend. She'd flirt with Ethan sometimes, but I chalked it up to her playful nature. He's too serious for me, she'd say, tossing her hair with a laugh. I believed her. I trusted them both. Now, that trust was a shattered vase, its pieces too jagged to ever fit back together. I scrolled through the post again, my hands trembling. The photo was recent. Ethan's new watch, the one I'd given him for his birthday, glinted on his wrist. They were at the pier, the same place we'd gone for our last date night. The realization hit like a slap. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was planned, deliberate, a performance for the world to see. Lila's caption wasn't just a jab. It was a declaration of war. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table, replaying every moment, every glance between them I'd dismissed. The way Lila had started borrowing my clothes more often, claiming she liked my style. The late nights Ethan said he was working, the sudden business trips. My anger grew, but so did something else, a cold, sharp resolve. I wasn't going to let them rewrite my story. Lila might think she'd won, but she'd forgotten one thing. I knew her better than anyone, and I knew exactly how to make her regret this. By morning, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to confront them, not yet. Screaming matches and tearful accusations would only give Lila the drama she craved. No, I needed something bigger, something that would hit them where it hurt. I opened my laptop and started digging, my fingers flying across the keyboard. Lila was impulsive, but she wasn't careless with money. Neither was Ethan. If they thought they could humiliate me and walk away unscathed, they were wrong. I had one card to play, one they'd never see coming, of $50. 000 detail they'd both overlooked in their reckless game. I started with Ethan's emails, the ones he thought I didn't know about because he'd left his laptop open one too many times. There it was, buried in a folder labeled work, a string of messages between him and Lila, dating back months. My stomach churned as I read their flirty banter, their plans to meet up, their mocking references to me as the boring twin. But then I found his contract. Ethan had been funneling money from our joint savings into a side project, a real estate deal he swore would set us up for life. Except it wasn't just his name on the paperwork. Lila's was there too, tied to a $50 000 investment she'd made with him, using money she didn't have. The pieces clicked together. Lila had always been terrible with finances, living paycheck to paycheck despite her influencer gigs. She'd borrowed from me before, small amounts I never thought twice about. But this was a loan she'd taken out in secret, using our shared credit line. The betrayal wasn't just personal anymore. It was financial, and that gave me leverage. I called my lawyer, Sarah, a no-nonsense woman who'd helped me with a lease dispute years ago. I need you to look into something, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. It's about my sister and my fiancé. They've crossed a line, and I'm not letting them get away with it. Sarah didn't ask for details. She just told me to send everything I had. By noon, I'd forwarded the emails, the contract, and screenshots of Lila's post. The plan was forming, and for the first time in hours, I felt a flicker of control. That afternoon, I drove to our family cabin, the one place Lila and I had always shared. No matter what. It was where we'd spent summers as kids, where we'd promised to always have each other's backs. The irony wasn't lost on me as I unlocked the door. The familiar creak of the hinges like a ghost of our past. I wasn't here to reminisce, though. I was here to strategize. Lila and Ethan thought they could rewrite my life, but they didn't know the half of it. I pulled out my notebook and started writing, mapping out every step of what came next. They wanted a spectacle. I'd give them one they'd never forget. The cabin smelled of pine and memories. But I pushed the nostalgia aside and focused on the task at hand. My notebook was filling up fast lists of evidence, timelines, and a plan that felt equal parts revenge and justice. Lila's betrayal wasn't just a personal wound. It was a financial ticking bomb. The $50,000 loan she'd taken out wasn't just her debt, it was tied to me, too. Because of our shared credit history, she'd used our twin connection to her advantage, assuming I'd never notice. But I had. And now, I was going to use it against her. Sarah called me back that evening, her voice crisp and professional. I've reviewed the documents, she said. This is fraud. Plain and simple. Lila forged your signature on the loan application, and Ethan's complicity in the real estate deal makes him an accessory. We can go after them both, civil and criminal, if you want to push it that far. I leaned back in the creaky wooden chair, staring at the lake outside. Criminal charges. The thought was tempting, but it felt too final, too cold. I wanted them to feel the weight of their actions, not just disappear behind bars. What about the money? I asked. Can we freeze the deal? Get it back? Sarah paused, and I could hear her flipping through papers. The real estate project is still in escrow, she said. If we act fast, we can file an injunction to halt it and demand a forensic audit. That'll tie up their funds and expose the fraud. But, Emma, this is going to get messy. Are you sure you want to go public with this? I didn't hesitate. They went public first. I said, let's make sure everyone knows the real story. By the next morning, Sarah had drafted the legal filings. The injunction would stop Ethan and Lila from touching the $50,000, and the audit would dig into every shady detail of their deal. But I wasn't stopping there. Lila lived for her online persona. Her Instagram was her empire, built on carefully curated lies. If she wanted to play the game of public humiliation, I'd meet her on her own turf. I created a new account, anonymous for now, and started posting snippets of the truth, screenshots of the loan documents. Blurred to protect my privacy, but clear enough to raise questions. I captioned them. Not everything is as picture-perfect as it seems. Twin betrayal. The response was immediate. My phone buzzed with notifications as Lila's followers started piecing things together. I didn't tag her directly, that would come later. For now, I let the internet do what it does best, speculate. Comments flooded in, some defending Lila, others demanding answers. I knew she'd see it. I knew it would drive her crazy not knowing who was behind it. And Ethan? He'd be sweating, wondering how much I knew about his little side hustle. I drove back to the city that afternoon, my resolve hardening with every mile. Lila's apartment was my first stop. We'd always had keys to each other's places, another twin thing I was starting to regret. I let myself in, expecting to find her gloating or maybe even with Ethan. Instead, the place was empty, her laptop open on the coffee table. Curiosity got the better of me. I sat down and started clicking through her files, my heart pounding. Most of it was influencer nonsense sponsored content drafts, outfit photos, but then I found a folder labeled. Inside were more emails, photos, even a draft of a joint bank account agreement between her and Ethan. My hands shook as I read their plans to start fresh once the real estate deal paid off. They were delusional, thinking they could build a future on stolen money and a stolen relationship. I copied everything onto a USB drive, my mind racing. This wasn't just about revenge, Anna Maria. It was about taking back what was mine. That night, I met Sarah at her office. She looked over the new evidence, her eyes narrowing. "This is gold, Emma," she said. "With this, we can prove intent. They weren't just careless, they knew exactly what they were doing." She leaned forward, her voice softening. "But I have to ask, are you okay? This is your sister, your fiancé. It's a lot to carry." I swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling in. "I'm not okay," I admitted. "But I can't let them win." Sarah nodded, and we got to work refining the plan. The injunction would hit first, freezing their accounts and stopping the deal in its tracks. Then, we'd file a civil suit for fraud and emotional distress. But the real blow would come online. I wasn't just going to expose Lila, I was going to dismantle her carefully crafted image. She'd always called herself the better twin, but I was about to show the world who she really was. As I left Sarah's office, my phone buzzed with a text from Lila. "We need to talk." It read. No apology, no explanation, just a demand. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Part of me wanted to confront her, to scream until my throat was raw. But that's what she expected. Instead, I typed, "You'll hear from me soon," and hit send. Let her sweat. Let her wonder. The game was just beginning, and I was playing to win. Lila's text lingered on my screen like a taunt, but I didn't respond again. Let her stew in the uncertainty. She'd always hated not being in control. I spent the next day at Sarah's office, finalizing the legal documents. The injunction was filed by noon, and Sarah's team was already working on the audit request. "This will lock their funds within 48 hours, she assured me, her eyes sharp with focus. "Once the court sees the forged signature, they'll have no choice but to dig deeper." I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere in the next phase of my plan. I'd always been the quiet twin, the one who planned and waited, while Lila leaped first and dealt with the consequences later. That was her weakness, and I was about to exploit it. Back at my apartment, I logged into my anonymous account and posted again a screenshot of the loan agreement, with Lila's name circled in red. The caption was simple: "Some upgrades come with a hidden cost." Twin betrayal. This time, I tagged her. The internet exploded. Lila's followers, usually so quick to fawn over her, turned feral. "Is this real?" One comment read, "Did she scam her own sister?" Another demanded. I watched the chaos unfold, my heart pounding with a mix of guilt and satisfaction. This wasn't just about hurting her, it was about exposing the truth. Lila had built her life on lies, and I was tearing down the facade, brick by brick. By evening, my phone was blowing up with calls from mutual friends, all shocked, all asking if I was okay. I didn't answer. I couldn't handle their pity. Not yet. Instead, I focused on the next step, Ethan. He'd been silent since Lila's post, probably hoping I'd just disappear. But I wasn't going anywhere. I sent him an email, short and to the point. "I know about the deal. I know about the money. Meet me tomorrow, or the next post goes viral with your name." I attached a screenshot of the bank account agreement, just to make sure he knew I wasn't bluffing. Ethan replied within minutes. His tone panicked. "Emma, let's talk. This isn't what it looks like." I almost laughed. Not what it looks like. The photo of him kissing my sister was pretty damn clear. But I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop downtown, a public place where he couldn't manipulate his way out. I wasn't going to let him charm me back, not this time. The coffee shop was crowded when I arrived, the air thick with the scent of espresso and nervous energy. Ethan was already there, sitting in a corner booth, his hands fidgeting with a napkin. He looked older than I remembered, the lines around his eyes deeper, his usual confidence replaced by a jittery unease. "Emma," he started as I sat down. "I'm so sorry. It was a mistake." Lila came on to me, and save it. I cut him off, my voice ice cold. "I don't care about your excuses. I care about the $50. 000 you and Lila stole from me." His face went white, and I knew I'd hit the mark. "I have everything," I continued. "The emails, the contract, the loan documents. You're both on the hook, and I'm not letting this go." Ethan leaned forward, his voice low. "Emma, please. We can fix this. I'll pay you back. I swear. Just don't go to the police." His desperation was almost pathetic, but I felt no pity. "You think this is about money?" I said, leaning in close. "This is about trust. You and Lila took everything from me. Now you're going to face the consequences." I left him there, his head in his hands, and walked out into the crisp evening air. My phone buzzed again, another text from Lila. "You're ruining my life." It read, "Stop this now." I didn't reply. She'd made her bed, and now she'd lie in it. Back at my apartment, I posted one more update, a blurred image of the forged signature, with a caption that read, "Family is supposed to protect you. What happens when they betray you instead?" Twin betrayal. The hashtag was trending now, and Lila's perfect world was crumbling. Sarah called me that night with an update. The injunction went through. She said, "Their accounts are frozen, and the audit's been approved. We've got them." Emma. I thanked her, but as I hung up, a wave of exhaustion hit me. This wasn't just about winning Anna Maria, it was about surviving. Lila and Ethan had taken so much, but I was taking back my power, one step at a time. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the girl I used to be, the one who trusted Lila implicitly, who believed Ethan was my forever. That girl was gone, replaced by someone stronger, someone who wouldn't let betrayal define her. Tomorrow, I'd face Lila. Tomorrow, I'd make her see what she'd done. But for now, I closed my eyes and let the silence carry me, knowing I was finally in control. The morning of the confrontation dawned bright and cold, the kind of day that felt too clean for the mess I was about to wade into. Lila had agreed to meet me at the park near our old high school, neutral ground where we'd once shared secrets and dreams. I arrived early, clutching a coffee I hadn't touched, my nerves humming like live wires. When Lila appeared, striding across the grass in her designer coat, she looked like the sister I'd always known. Same face, same walk, same defiant tilt of her chin. But the warmth was gone, replaced by a guarded glare. "Emma," she said, stopping a few feet away. "What the hell are you doing? Those posts, are you trying to destroy me?" Her voice was sharp, but I caught the tremble beneath it. She was scared, and that gave me strength. "You destroyed yourself," I said, keeping my tone even. "You posted that photo, Lila. You captioned it. You wanted the world to know you stole my fiancé. Did you think I'd just sit there and take it?" Her eyes flashed, but she didn't deny it. "You always acted like you were better than me," she spat. Perfect Emma, with her perfect life, her perfect fiancé. I was sick of it. Ethan saw me for who I am, not just your shadow. Her words stung, but I didn't flinch. "If you wanted him, you could have talked to me," I said. "Instead, you lied, you schemed, and you stole $50. 000 that wasn't yours." Lila's face froze, her bravado cracking. "What are you talking about?" she asked, but her voice was weaker now. I pulled out my phone and showed her the loan document, the one with her forged signature in my name. "This," I said, "you tied me to your debt. Lila, you and Ethan thought you could cash out and leave me holding the bag. But I found it. And now the courts are involved. She stepped back, her hands shaking. I didn't mean for it to go this far. She whispered. Ethan said it was a sure thing, that we'd pay it back before you noticed. I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the empty park. You didn't mean to get caught. You mean, you didn't care about me, Lila. You only cared about winning. For a moment, she looked like the little girl who'd clung to me during thunderstorms, her eyes wide and vulnerable. But then the mask came back up. You're jealous, she said, her voice hardening. You've always been jealous of me. That's why you're doing this. I shook my head, exhaustion washing over me. I loved you, I said. I trusted you. And you threw it all away for a man who doesn't even love you as using you, just like you used me. I turned to leave, but Lila grabbed my arm. Emma, please, she said, tears in her eyes now. We can fix this. Don't take this to court. I'll do anything. I pulled away, my heart aching but resolute. It's too late, I said. You made your choice. Now you live with it. As I walked away, her sobs echoed behind me, but I didn't look back. I'd given her enough of my tears. Back at my apartment, I checked my anonymous account. The twin betrayal hashtag was everywhere now, with articles starting to pick up the story. Lila's sponsors were dropping her, one by one, her empire crumbling faster than I'd expected. Part of me felt a pang of guilt. She was my sister, after all, but then I remembered her caption, her smug smile in that photo. She'd wanted this fight. I was just finishing it. Sarah called with an update. The audit's underway, she said. We've got a court date next week. Ethan's lawyer reached out, trying to settle, but I told them we're not backing down. I thanked her, feeling the weight of the coming battle. This wasn't just about money, Anna Marie, it was about justice, about showing the world that I wasn't the boring twin who'd let herself be walked over. That night, I started writing a new post, one that would be my final word on the matter. I poured everything into it, my pain, my anger, my strength. I didn't post it yet. I wanted to wait for the court date, when the truth would be undeniable. Lila and Ethan had thought they could break me, but they'd underestimated me. I was done being the quiet twin. I was ready to roar. The week before the court date passed in a blur of preparation and sleepless nights. Sarah and I met daily, going over every piece of evidence, every angle of the case. The audit had uncovered more than we'd expected. Not only had Lila forged my signature, but Ethan had misrepresented the real estate deal to investors, pocketing a hefty commission while the project teetered on the edge of collapse. Their house of cards was falling, and I was the one pulling the strings. I avoided social media, letting the twin betrayal frenzy build without my input. Lila's posts had gone silent, her usual stream of selfies and sponsored content replaced by a conspicuous absence. Ethan, too, was lying low, his LinkedIn profile suddenly private. They knew the storm was coming, and they were scrambling. Good. Let them feel the pressure I'd lived with since that post. The night before the hearing, I sat down with my notebook, the one I'd filled at the cabin. It wasn't just a plan, Anna Marie, it was a map of my survival. I flipped through the pages, reading my own words. They took my trust, but they won't take my future. I'd meant it then, and I meant it now. But as I sat there, the weight of what was coming hit me. Tomorrow, I'd face Lila and Ethan in court, in front of a judge, in front of the world. It wasn't just about winning, it was about reclaiming my life. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined, its wooden benches worn but polished, the air heavy with anticipation. I sat beside Sarah, my hands clasped tightly in my lap as Lila and Ethan entered. Lila looked smaller somehow, her usual confidence replaced by a nervous fidgeting. Ethan avoided my gaze, his jaw tight. The judge, a stern woman with sharp eyes, called the session to order, and Sarah presented our case with surgical precision: the forged loan, the fraudulent deal, the emotional devastation. Lila's lawyer tried to spin it, claiming it was a misunderstanding, that Lila had acted out of desperation. But the evidence was overwhelming. Emails, documents, even Lila's own texts admitting she'd known the loan was in my name. Ethan's lawyer was no better, fumbling through excuses about miscommunication. The judge wasn't having it. "This isn't a soap opera," she said, her voice cutting through the room. "This is fraud, and it has consequences." When it was my turn to speak, I stood, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. "I trusted them," I said, looking directly at Lila. "I trusted my sister, my twin, to have my back. I trusted my fiancé to build a life with me. They didn't just betray me, they stole from me, humiliated me, and thought they could get away with it. I'm here to make sure they don't." The room was silent, the weight of my words hanging in the air. Lila's eyes filled with tears, but I didn't waver. This was my moment. The judge ruled in our favor. The injunction was upheld. The $50,000 returned to me, and Lila and Ethan were ordered to pay damages for fraud and emotional distress. But the real victory came when the judge addressed Lila directly. "You've caused significant harm," she said, "not just to your sister, but to the trust that binds families. I hope you understand the gravity of what you've done." Lila nodded, her face crumpling, but I felt no satisfaction, only relief. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting, drawn by the twin betrayal hashtag and the growing online storm. I ignored them, slipping into Sarah's car as she drove me home. "You did it," she said, glancing at me. "You stood up for yourself." I nodded, but the victory felt hollow. I'd won, but at what cost? My sister was a stranger now, my fiancé a ghost of a life I'd once wanted. I was free, but I was alone. That night, I posted my final update, the one I'd written days ago. It was raw, honest, a letter to the world and to myself. "Betrayal doesn't define you," I wrote. "What you do next does." I chose to fight, not for revenge, but for me. Twin betrayal is over. My story isn't. The post went viral, but I didn't read the comments. I didn't need their validation anymore. I'd found my own. The days after the court ruling were quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos that had consumed my life. The $50,000 was back in my account. The real estate deal dissolved, and Lila and Ethan were left to deal with their own fallout. I moved out of the apartment I'd shared with Ethan, renting a small studio downtown where I could start fresh. The walls were bare, the space empty, but it felt like a blank canvas for a new chapter. Lila tried to reach out once, leaving a voicemail that I didn't listen to for days. When I finally did, her voice was broken, pleading. "Emma, I'm sorry," she said. "I was stupid, selfish. I didn't mean to hurt you like this." But her words felt like echoes of a stranger. I didn't call her back. Not because I hated her, though part of me did, but because I wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Ethan disappeared entirely. His social media accounts deleted. His phone number changed. Mutual friends told me he'd left the city, chasing some new venture to escape the scandal. I didn't care where he went. He'd been a mirage, a promise of love that crumbled under scrutiny. I deserved better, and for the first time, I believed it. The online storm eventually died down, but the twin betrayal hashtag left a mark. Articles called it a cautionary tale about trust and family, while others praised my resilience. I didn't read most of them. I was done living my life for an audience. Instead, I focused on rebuilding, starting with myself. I enrolled in a coding boot camp, something I'd always wanted to try but never had the courage to pursue. It was hard, humbling, but it gave me purpose, a reason to get up each morning. One evening, as I was working through a particularly tricky algorithm, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from Sarah, forwarding a settlement offer from Lila's lawyer. They were offering to pay off the remaining damages in installments. along with a public apology. I stared at the email. Torn. Part of me wanted to reject it, to make Lila face every consequence. But another part, the part that still remembered our childhood, our shared secrets, hesitated. I called Sarah. What do you think? I asked. She sighed, her voice warm but firm. Legally, it's a good deal. It closes the case cleanly. But this isn't just about the law, Emma. It's about what you need to move on. I thanked her and hung up, my mind spinning. What did I need? Closure? Revenge? Or something else entirely? I spent the next day walking through the city, letting the noise and movement clear my head. I ended up at the pier, the same place Lila and Ethan had taken that photo. The water sparkled under the setting sun, and for a moment, I let myself feel the pain of it all, the betrayal, the loss, the sister I'd never fully get back. But then I felt something else, strength. I'd survived this. I'd fought and won. And I wasn't done yet. I replied to Sarah's email that night, accepting the settlement, but with one condition. Lila's apology had to be private. Just to me. No more public spectacles. No more hashtags. This was between us. Twin to twin. I didn't know if she'd agree, but it felt right. I wasn't fighting for the world's approval anymore. I was fighting for me. As I hit send, a weight lifted. Not all of it, but enough. I opened my laptop and went back to my coding. The lines of code, a puzzle I could solve, a future I could build. Lila and Ethan had tried to break me, but they'd only made me stronger. And that was the detail they'd never understand. 3 months later, I stood in front of my new apartment's window, watching the city pulse below. The studio was small, but it was mine, filled with books, plants, and a desk where I spent hours coding. The boot camp was grueling, but I was thriving, my mind sharper than it had been in years. I'd even started a blog, not about betrayal, but about tech, about starting over. It was small, but it was mine, and that was enough. Lila's apology came a week after I'd accepted the settlement. It was a letter, handwritten, delivered to my new address. She'd honored my request for privacy, and for that, I was grudgingly grateful. I don't expect you to forgive me, she wrote. I know I broke something that can't be fixed, but I'm trying to be better. Emma. I hope you're happy. I read it once, then tucked it away in a drawer. Maybe one day I'd respond. Maybe not. For now, I was focused on my own path. The damages from the lawsuit had paid off my debts, and with the $50,000 returned, I'd started a small investment fund, not for real estate, but for myself. A safety net. A future. Ethan's name surfaced occasionally in industry gossip, always tied to some failed venture. I didn't wish him ill, but I didn't wish him well either. He was a chapter closed, a lesson learned. One evening, as I was debugging a project, a notification popped up on my phone. It was a message from an old friend, someone who'd stayed out of the drama. Saw Lila's new post. It read, "She's taking a break from social media. Says she's focusing on herself." I opened Instagram, curious despite myself. Lila's latest post was a simple photo of her at the cabin. No filter, no caption, just her and the lake. It was the most honest thing she'd posted in years. I didn't like the post, didn't comment, but I felt a flicker of something, hope. Maybe that she was trying to change. Or maybe it was just closure. The final piece of a puzzle I'd been assembling since that awful day. I closed the app and went back to my code. The glow of the screen a reminder of the life I was building, one line at a time. The twin betrayal hashtag was history now, a fading echo in the online world. But its lessons stayed with me. Trust is fragile, but so is betrayal. And strength. That's unbreakable, if you choose it. I chose it every day, in every line of code, every step forward. Lila had called herself the better twin, but I didn't need to compete anymore. I was enough. As I saved my work and shut down my laptop, I looked out at the city again. The lights twinkled like stars, each one a possibility, a chance to keep going. I wasn't the girl who'd crumbled on the floor that first night. I was Emma, the twin who'd fought back, who'd turned pain into power. And no one, not Lila, not Ethan, not anyone could take that away from me.